This is an E46 BMW M3. Today we're going to take a nice drive through the country and I'll tell you why you've got to get one before it's too late. Traction control's on, isn't it? So welcome to the BMW E46 M3, arguably the most revered M car that BMW has ever made. And I know that that's a bold statement considering they've made some absolute classics like the V10 M5, the E39 M5, the E92 M3 even. However, this is lauded, one of the two, by many people, and for good reason as well, because it is an absolute classic of a car in terms of its design, in terms of its driving dynamics, in terms of its rare and appreciating status that it now has. So let's talk a little bit more about it, shall we? Why is it held in such high esteem amongst car journalists, amongst car fans, amongst so many people that just like cars, really? It's for a number of different reasons, one of which is the looks. It is a stunning looking car, this, and it has aged so well in the 25 years since it first went into production. Also, the engine, an S54 straight six, 330 horsepower, an engine that loves to rev, loves to sing, and with the right modifications on it, such as an exhaust and such as an air intake, which this car has both of, it sounds absolutely brilliant. And also, thirdly, in terms of the driving dynamics of this car, it's a lightweight car, this, relative to modern counterparts. The chassis is nimble, it feels connected, and it is such a joyous car to drive and enjoy. And it's one of those cars that I think has aged particularly well. If you look at cars from 25 years ago, and if you drew an outline, a silhouette of a BMW E46 M3, compared to some of the stuff that no one really remembers, this is something I think that people do remember, will remember for years to come. But the question is it the best M car that money can buy? Well, obviously that's subjective. Now, I love an M3. I actually had an E92. You'll have seen it on the channel quite recently. But I got rid of it to buy this car back. And some people might be wondering why I've done that, because the V8 S65 engine that's in that car is held in even higher esteem compared to the S54 that's in this. However, the reason I bought this car back is because it is just the antithesis of what an E46 M3 should be. And also, for me, it was the poster car of my childhood. So I bought this car because I used to play Need for Speed Most Wanted when I was a kid, and the cover car for that was the M3 GTR, and I just had this love affair with it. And it's actually the second time I've owned this one, but it's the third E46 M3 I've owned. The first one I bought was back in 2022. I swapped my Alfa Romeo 147 GTA for it and bought this car. Whilst that was a nice idea on paper, in reality it didn't work out like that, because it was a car that hadn't been looked after in its life. I actually gave it back to the dealer after a couple of days, but it was always an itch that was left unscratched. So last year, another E46 M3, this car came up and I bought it, and it turned out to be even worse. It was an absolute wreck of a thing. I drove this car home, the brakes failed 10 miles into the drive, I'm driving it home on the handbrake. It was a complete wreck. It needed a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of money. I spent 10 grand fixing it, including reinforcing the boot floor, putting new brakes on the car all round, putting brand new BMW suspension on it, lowering springs, tidying up the bodywork, just making the car drive as good as it should, polybushing it all underneath. All of these things we did to this M3, and then I sold it. And I don't know why I sold it. I must have had a brain bypass or something, but I just got it into my head that I wanted an Audi R8, and a V10 one came up at a really good price, so I rushed this onto the market and I got rid of it, which was a bit of a mistake financially, because it kicked me in the nads every time I took it to a garage. It cost an absolute fortune. It was one of those cars that the second it drove away, I regretted it, and I thought I've got to get that car back at some point, and I never thought the opportunity would come about, really. Sold the Audi R8, bought the E92 as a replacement, and whilst I loved it, that particular E92, the Performance Edition, was a car that was almost a bit too nice for me. I couldn't do anything to it. It was so rare that putting an exhaust on it, an intake, bucket seats in it, whatever, would have been an absolute crime. And it just so happens that not long after I'd purchased that, the guy I sold the E46 to at the beginning of the year was looking to sell up, and here we are. I bought the car back for pretty much the same money. He's done a couple of bits to it, and I now have my old E46 M3 back, and I could not be happier. Now, this isn't a car that's standard by any stretch of the imagination. It's got standard suspension on it at the moment, but it's sitting on lowering springs. It's got a carbon CSL style intake, a Scorpion catback exhaust on it, polybushed underneath. We've done quite a few things to this car during its ownership, and I'm not done with it either, because there are a few things that I want to do. So whilst we're driving through a road that is not really a road, more of a quagmire full of puddles and mud, let's talk about the driving dynamics of this car. It's incredibly well balanced and poised. I took this car on track last week, and I can see why so many E46 M3s ended up as track cars, because it was incredibly responsive, really sharp on the nose. I've got upgraded brakes on this, so I can't really comment on the standard E46 M3 ones, but the reason I upgraded the brakes is because standard E46 M3s have got single piston calipers, and this has now got 4 piston calipers on each of the on both the front wheels. But it stopped really well, it drove very compliantly, and it was really, really good fun. It was the sort of car that inspired confidence on a racetrack. I really enjoyed it. The E92 M3 that I had technically is probably a better car. It was a bit more refined, a bit more comfortable on a long distance journey, but I drive these cars probably once a month if I'm being generous, because I'm away for work quite often. It ended up being that this E46 was sort of the best place for me to be. The E92, whilst it was lovely, just lacked the rawness of this E46, and that's why we've ended up back here. Anyway, let's talk about the timeless looks of this E46 M3 then. Well, I think personally it's a design that has aged so well over the years. It's so well proportioned, so handsome, and I think in this CSL grey, the silver grey as it's referred to, it just looks so right. And this is also mated with the CSL wheels on this particular car as well, which were an option. It was fitted originally with 18-inch wheels, but the 19-inch CSL ones, they decrease the ride quality a little bit, but I think they add much more in terms of the styling. And to be honest with you, I have never driven this particular car on 18-inch wheels, so I wouldn't really notice that much difference anyway. In terms of the driving dynamics, I've got nothing but praise. Because it's so light and so raw, it's just such a fun thing to drive. You can throw it into a corner and there's nothing sort of weighing it down over the front or the rear. The balance of the car just feels great, as you would begin to expect. It's a bit like being an adult at a soft play centre. You know you shouldn't go on the slides, but you're going to have a go anyway, and that's exactly what this car encourages you to do. It encourages you to go and do things that you probably shouldn't, like hacking it on a B road. And it's not all perfect, by the way. There are a few downsides, a few things that I'm not so keen on. The driving position, for one, I don't really like it. The seats, they're electric in this, they sit up too high, and it just doesn't, I feel like I'm sat on the roof. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm sat sort of looking down. I'm 5'10", I'm not a particularly tall bloke. If I was someone of Jimmy Broadbent's stature, I might be all right. But in this, I've never really found a driving position that I feel that comfortable in. It's always been a bit of a compromise. So I'm probably going to put some bucket seats in this at some point. And also, the steering, the rack itself actually feels a little bit slow. And by that, I mean you have to do a bit more steering through a sort of smaller corner, narrower, shallower corner than you would otherwise expect. Other than the driving position and the steering, I really do struggle to find fault with this car. It's engaging and fun, and that's a pothole, and that's probably ruined by wheels. Let's talk about the power then. 330 horsepower from the S54, an incredibly raspy sounding tone. It's like you've got Louis Armstrong stuck in the exhaust pipe. It's not the quickest car in the world, but it doesn't need to be. And whilst technically it's very impressive, when you're driving a car on a B road, 0 to 60 times is sort of irrelevant. I don't think it matters how fast this car is. It could have 1,000,000 horsepower, but it has 330, and it's all usable. It's all power that you can enjoy and use. If I look back to the Audi R8 that I had earlier this year, whilst it was a wonderful car technically, and it made a sound that I think it struggles to be matched with that V10 engine, it was a bit too quick, especially for roads in Britain. I mean, I'm driving down a narrow country lane now, and I was so worried about catching the sides of it or scraping a bumper or whatever. Whereas this, it's a bit narrower, it's a bit more nimble, it's lighter as well, and subsequently it feels more engaging. It's such a fun car. Throw it in. Oh yes. It's just so fun and engaging. You can just enjoy it so much. It feels light and nimble and responsive. And if you want to buy an E46 M3, now's the time you've got to do it, to go and buy them, because they're not getting any cheaper and they're surely going to start going up in value. I'm trying to find one that's sub 100k. Make sure it's had the big jobs done to it, the vanos, the boot floor, and it's had the rod bearings done, because they're the three things that every E46 M3 owner talks about. The boot floor cracks, you got to make sure it's been done. In this car, thankfully, we did it all. The vanos was already done, and the rod bearings as well. Make sure that if you do buy a car, that if the rod bearings haven't been done, that you can get that factored into the price. If they have been done, hopefully they've got the original rod bearings. A lot of people keep them, because the last thing you want is to drive your car home and then the engine goes bang, and before you know it, you've just got yourself a very expensive paperweight. You can pick up a good one of these for between 15 to 20 grand. You can pick up a really terrible one for about 14, 13, and you've got to go and do it now before it is too late. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we have making it. Take care, and we'll see you again very soon.